If someone had told me a year ago that my entire marriage would come crashing down because of a babysitter, I would have laughed in their face. My wife, Jessica, and I had been married for 7 years. We had built a good life together, one that most people would envy. A nice house in a quiet neighborhood, stable jobs, 2 cars in the driveway, and most importantly, our 4-year-old daughter, Emma. She was the light of my life. The reason I worked late nights and put in the extra effort. I wanted to give her everything. Jessica and I had met in college, and from the start, she had been my person. She was smart, funny, and fiercely independent. When we got married, I never doubted that she was the one. We had been through everything together, job losses, family drama, financial struggles, and through it all, we had stayed strong. Or so I thought. Things started changing subtly. I didn't even notice at first. Jessica had always been a great mother, but recently she seemed detached, more distracted, more distant. I blamed it on stress. She had started working longer hours at her new job, a big corporate position she had fought hard to get. It made sense that she was overwhelmed. I told myself it was normal for couples to go through phases like this, where life just got busy. Then, the babysitter came into our lives. Her name was Gracie, and she was a 22-year-old college student looking for extra work. Jessica found her through a friend's recommendation. She was polite, responsible, and great with Emma. From the beginning, I had no issues with her. If anything, she seemed too quiet, a little shy, but I figured that was just her personality. But after a few weeks, I noticed something strange. Gracie started acting differently, not toward Emma, but toward me. At first, it was just small things. She would avoid eye contact when I walked into the room. Her conversations with me were short and stiff, and sometimes I caught her looking at me with this expression I couldn't quite place. It wasn't attraction, it wasn't fear, it was something else. Something like hesitation, like she knew something she wasn't supposed to. One night, when I came home from work, I walked into the house and saw Gracie staring at me. Not in a casual way. She was frozen in place, gripping her phone, her face pale like she had seen a ghost. The second she realized I had noticed, she turned away, muttered a quick good night, and left so fast it was like she was running from something. I stood there, confused, unsettled. Something wasn't right, and I had no idea that Gracie knew the truth before I did. The night after Gracie rushed out of the house, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed the way she had looked at me, like she knew something I didn't. I tried to shake it off, to convince myself I was overthinking, but the feeling lodged itself deep in my gut and wouldn't go away. Jessica lay beside me in bed, scrolling through her phone, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. She had been more distant lately, but I had been too busy making excuses for her to really acknowledge it. I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, just one of those phases marriages went through. I turned onto my side, staring at the ceiling. Something wasn't right. The next day I left work early. I had no real plan, just an instinct telling me to pay attention. Jessica thought I was still at the office when I pulled into the driveway that afternoon, but the house was empty. Emma was at daycare and Jessica's car was gone. I walked inside, my gut tightening with every step. Everything looked normal, but for the first time in a long time, I realized how little I really saw my own home. I went to the laundry room first, checking the hamper. Jessica had always been particular about doing laundry, yet there was a single dress shoved at the bottom as if she had hidden it. I pulled it out, and my stomach dropped. It smelled like cologne. Not mine. I clenched my jaw, my hands tightening around the fabric. My breathing slowed, but my pulse thundered in my ears. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. I moved to our bedroom, my hands shaking as I went through her nightstand. Jessica wasn't careless. She was meticulous, the type of person who covered her tracks. But people always left something behind. And then I found it. Her old phone, the one she claimed had broken months ago. I turned it on and the screen flickered to life. My heart pounded as I went through the messages, the ones she clearly thought were gone forever. But she had made a mistake. She hadn't deleted everything. And there it was. Messages from him. I didn't recognize the number, but the words made me want to throw the phone across the room. Everything made sense now. The late nights, the sudden distance, the excuses. She had been seeing someone else. And Gracie knew. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I needed air. I needed to think. I grabbed the phone and walked outside, pacing the front yard as I scrolled further, my vision tunneling as I read their conversations. They had been meeting at a hotel. The date on the last message. Yesterday, my hands curled into fists. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made me turn. Jessica stepped out, looking surprised to see me, but something flickered across her face, something uneasy. "Randy, what are you doing home?" I held up the phone. For a moment, she didn't react. Then she laughed, but it was forced, brittle. "Is that my old phone? I told you it doesn't work anymore." I watched her carefully. "It works just fine." Her smile faltered. "Why are you going through my things?" I ignored the question. "Who is he?" Her face paled. I took a step closer. "I know Jessica. I know everything." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I could see the wheels turning in her head, the desperate attempt to figure out which lie would work best right now, but there was no lie that could fix this. She started, then stopped. Her hands trembled, and for a second, I thought she was going to come clean. But then she did something that made my blood run cold. She smiled. "You have no proof," she said. My stomach twisted. She wasn't denying it. She wasn't apologizing. She was calculating. For a moment, I just stared at her, the woman I had spent years loving, trusting, building a life with, and I realized something that nearly knocked the breath out of me. I didn't recognize her anymore. The person in front of me wasn't my wife, not the woman I had married, not the woman I had fought for, sacrificed for, built a home with. That woman didn't exist anymore, and maybe she never had. I felt something inside me break. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I didn't give her the fight she was expecting. I just turned around and walked inside. She called after me, her voice rising, demanding I listen, demanding I give her a chance to explain. But I didn't stop, because there was nothing left to say. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, my daughter's favorite stuffed bear, the one she couldn't sleep without. And then I walked out the door. I wasn't going to fight for a marriage that had already been burned to the ground. Jessica called me that night. I didn't pick up. She texted. I didn't respond. By the next morning, I had already called a lawyer, and by the time she realized what she had lost, it was too late. She had destroyed us, and I wasn't going to let her take me down with her. I drove without a destination, my hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary. My heart wasn't pounding with rage anymore. It was something else, something worse. The cold, settling weight of realization, the kind that crept into your bones and made you feel like you'd been walking through life blind, unaware that everything around you was a carefully constructed lie. I pulled into a quiet parking lot near the park where I used to take Emma on weekends. She loved the swings. She'd beg me to push her higher and higher, squealing with laughter, while Jessica sat on a nearby bench, pretending to watch, but always with her phone in her hand. The memories felt different now, tainted. I sat there for a long time staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Who the hell was I now? A husband who no longer had a wife. A father who had to figure out what life looked like without the illusion of family I had been desperately clinging to. I closed my eyes and exhaled. There was no fixing this. No therapy, no apology, no desperate promises to work through it. It was done. I wasn't even mourning the relationship anymore. I was mourning the person I thought she was. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I didn't need to look. I knew it was her. The messages had been coming all night. First, they were excuses. "Randy, I can explain. Please, just let me talk to you. It wasn't what you think." Then the guilt. "I messed up, but I love you. Don't throw everything away over one mistake." One mistake? What a joke. And then, finally, the anger. "You had no right to go through my things. If you leave, you'll destroy Emma's life. You're not innocent either. You put work before me for years." I almost laughed at that one. It was textbook manipulation, blame shifting, rewriting history, making me the villain so she wouldn't have to sit with what she had done. I blocked her number. She had lost the right to my time, my energy, my patience. The only thing that mattered now was Emma. By the next morning, I had already called my lawyer. I didn't want a drawn-out fight, but I would do whatever it took to make sure my daughter didn't suffer because of her mother's choices. I had proof, I had documentation, and, most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. Jessica must have realized that too, because by the time she saw the divorce papers, the messages stopped. I heard from mutual friends that she tried to paint herself as the victim, telling people I had abandoned our family over a misunderstanding, that I was being cruel, that I was throwing away a marriage without giving her a chance. But the people who really knew me, the ones who had seen the way I had loved her, they didn't buy it. She lost friends. She lost the respect of the people around her. And eventually, she lost the life she had taken for granted. I never looked back. Months passed. The divorce went through. I got primary custody of Emma. Jessica got visitation rights, but even that became less frequent as time went on. She made excuses, claimed she was too busy, too tired. At first, Emma would ask about her, but eventually she stopped. Because she had me, and I would never betray her the way her mother had betrayed me. One evening, I was sitting on the porch watching Emma play in the yard when my phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. But then I opened it. I know you hate me, but I need you to know I regret everything. I lost everything. I just hope one day you'll forgive me. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, without replying, I deleted it. She had destroyed us. She had made her choices. And now, she had to live with them. The days passed, then weeks, then months. Life had a strange way of moving forward, even when it felt like everything had come crashing down. At first, every morning felt like waking up to a bad dream, the kind where for a few seconds everything felt normal until reality crept back in like a slow, suffocating weight. The empty side of the bed, the quiet in the house that once buzzed with the presence of someone who was supposed to be my partner. But I learned. I adapted. I healed in ways I didn't think were possible. I focused on Emma. She was my anchor through it all, the one thing that kept me grounded when the anger threatened to consume me. She was too young to understand everything, but she understood enough. She knew that Mommy didn't live with us anymore, that things were different now, that sometimes she would still see her, but mostly it was just the two of us. And she was okay with that. At first, Jessica fought for more time with her. She made a big show of saying she wanted shared custody, that she would never let her mistakes affect her relationship with our daughter. But like everything else in our marriage, that was just another lie. Because as time went on, the calls became less frequent. The visits became shorter, then sporadic, then almost non-existent. Jessica had always been selfish. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I used to wonder what she was doing during those long stretches of silence. If she had moved on, if she had found someone new, if she had built another life as easily as she had burned ours to the ground. But then, one night, I got my answer. A mutual friend reached out. A message popped up on my phone, unexpected and short. I know you don't care anymore, but Jessica isn't doing well. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I should have ignored it. I should have let it go. But part of me, some small, stubborn part, still wanted to know. What happened? The reply came fast. She lost her job a while back, got caught in some scandal with her boss. Guess it turns out what she did to you wasn't a one-time thing. She tried to get another job, but no one would touch her after that. I heard she moved in with some guy for a while, but that didn't last. She's struggling. I let out a slow breath, feeling something I didn't expect. Nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity, just emptiness. Jessica had made her choices. She had gambled with everything we built, everything she could have had. And now, she had nothing. I put my phone down and went to check on Emma. She was already asleep, curled up under the covers, her tiny fingers gripping the stuffed bear I had given her months ago. She didn't ask about Jessica anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed, brushing a stray curl from her forehead, feeling something deep in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was free. Jessica had spent our entire marriage taking my love, my trust, my time, taking until there was nothing left. But in the end, I was the one who walked away whole. She could live in the wreckage she created. I wasn't looking back.